UFC 321 is in the books, and this might be one of the strangest cards we've had all year. We had one belt change hands because of a freak injury, another change hands because of a career best performance, a legend walked away, judging did judging things, and a couple of my reads aged beautifully, while one of them particularly blew up in my face. Quick note on results before we get into the fights. We finished the night around +6 units. Technically a winning card, but with how some of these fights played out, it definitely feels like we left some meat on the bone. Let's go through the 6 fights we built the portfolio around, and then I'll rapid fire a few of the other big moments from the event and where these fighters might be heading next. First up, we've got Grant Dawson versus Manuel Torres. The whole read going in was that Dawson was the more complete MMA fighter, but Torres is extremely dangerous early. You're basically betting on Dawson's ability to survive the first few chaotic minutes, drag this into deeper water, and let his grappling and control take over. Instead, we get the best case version of the Torres experience. Both guys start fast, they're trading, Dawson's trying to get his game going, and Torres cracks him clean, drops him, and finishes him in the first round. On the stat sheet, Torres only needed 9 significant strikes on 17 attempts with a knockdown to end it, while Dawson landed 8 of 21. That tells you everything. In a sample that was small, one clean shot decides the whole thing. From a process standpoint, it tells us that if you're fading someone like Torres, you're not just handicapping skill, you're betting on your guy's chin and composure in chaos. Dawson failed that test, and we have to keep that in mind next time he's in a similar spot. Torres passed the test, and he looked composed, patient, while maintaining his killer instinct. Looking forward, this puts Dawson firmly in rebuild mode. I think he needs a step back against someone on the fringe of the top 15 to see if he can tighten up his entries and shot selection under pressure. For Torres, this reinforces what we already knew. He's a nightmare in the first 5 minutes. If the UFC keeps giving him names who take time to get going, he's going to cash them tickets and wreck game plans. The big question is whether he can extend that danger past the early going. We still haven't seen that version of Torres just yet. Next on the card, we had Yan Blachowicz versus Bogdan Guskov. Going in, the angle was pretty simple. Yan is the more complete, proven fighter with better tools over minutes. Guskov has legit power and is a knockout threat, but if it's turned into an extended amount of exchanges and full rounds, I liked Yan to edge it on experience and craft. That's almost exactly what we saw, right up until the scorecards, that is. Over 3 rounds, Yan outlanded Guskov 84-80 in significant strikes and 100-98 in total strikes. He was generally the one winning the majority of the minutes. The numbers reflect that. But Guskov had the one thing Yan didn't, the knockdown. And in 3, well, I guess you could name the knockdown in the last 10 seconds. But clearly the second round was pretty influential in the judges' eyes, or at least 2 of them. And in a 3-round fight with close rounds, that one moment of a knockdown ends up carrying a ton of weight. We got a majority draw. One judge scores it 29-28 for Yan, the other 2 28-28. I scored it for Yan, and I still think he should have gotten his hand raised. But this is the reality of 3-round fights. One big moment from a raw power puncher can erase a lot of steady, technically solid work. For me, this goes firmly in the right side wrong result bucket. I don't hate the read, I hate the variance. Looking ahead, I still think Yan has one more meaningful run left if they match him right. If they keep throwing him in with young, explosive guys who can wobble him early, we'll see more nights like this most likely. For Guskov, this kind of performance against a former champ probably earns him another big name opportunity. But he also showed that outside of the knockdown, he can be outworked. Going forward, he's going to be a very live underdog type, dangerous, but not a guy you can trust to win clean minutes yet. Now, Peyton Talbott versus Henry Cejudo. Before the fight, I said this was a high-risk, low-value spot. Even if you lean Talbott, you have to respect what Cejudo brings: championship experience, durability, and fight IQ. The expectation was that if Talbott won, it would likely be over minutes rather than some wild early finish, and that's exactly what we got. Talbott put on a really impressive, mature performance. He landed 134 significant strikes out of 217 thrown, more than doubling Cejudo's 60 of 116. The total strikes were 156 of 240 for Talbott versus 77 of 136 for Cejudo. That's a clear volume and efficiency edge. And it wasn't just on the feet. In the wrestling, Talbott went 3 for 5 on his takedowns, while Cejudo was just 1 for 7. When you're beating Henry Cejudo to the punch and also winning the takedown battle, you're doing something very real. Cejudo was still game, still tough, but he was a step behind against a younger, longer, fresher fighter who is clearly entering his prime. After the fight, Henry announces he's done. If this is truly the end, losing a clear but competitive decision to a surging contender with those numbers against him is a pretty respectable way to go out. From our side, I'm happy with how we approached this one. We respected Cejudo enough not to get reckless. We expected durability and a decision-type fight, and that's how it played out. Talbott is absolutely a name that we need to keep circling going forward. Looking ahead, Talbott just proved he can win rounds, hold pace, and stuff, and hit takedowns against one of the most credentialed wrestlers in MMA history. That screams future title picture. A matchup with another ranked guy who can push a similar pace would tell us if he's ready for true contender status. For Cejudo, if this retirement sticks, his legacy is locked. If he ever does come back again, the market shouldn't treat him like peak Triple C. This fight showed there's real slippage in speed and wrestling effectiveness. Now, let's talk about Moreno versus Tatsuro Taira, my biggest miss of the night. I said it already in my notes and I'll repeat it here. I underestimated Taira and overestimated where Moreno is at right now. Round 1 actually gives you that classic Moreno moment. He locks up a deep triangle choke and it really looks like he might pull another one out of the fire. Taira stays calm, does all the right things defensively, and survives a position that probably finishes a lot of other fighters. From there, the script completely flips. In the second round, Taira finds his shots, hurts Moreno, gets dominant positions, and then absolutely pours on the ground and pound until the referee steps in. It's the first time Moreno has ever been finished, and you could argue that it was an early stoppage. I'd agree with that. However, Taira clearly showed he was dangerous on the ground, and it might have just been prolonging the inevitable if the fight wasn't stopped then. The numbers tell the same story that the tape does. Moreno only lands 9 significant strikes out of 17 attempts. Taira more than triples that output with 28 significant strikes on 48 attempts and 45 total strikes landed. That's not a nip and tuck fight that happened to break the wrong way. That's one fighter taking over and closing the show. The adjustment is pretty simple. Taira is no longer a promising prospect in my notes. He's a legitimate top-tier threat who can take over fights and finish elite opponents. And for Moreno, we have to be honest about the mileage and about how much of his edge at the top has been eroded by the wars he's been through. Looking ahead, Taira should be in nothing but top contender or title eliminator type fights from here. He showed composure under submission threat and real fight-ending ability once he got on top. For Moreno, I think we're entering that phase of his career where you have to be very careful about how you price him against hungry younger fighters. He can still win big fights, but the days of assuming he's unkillable at flyweight are over. Next up, the wildest title fight of the night, Alexandre Pantoja versus Joshua Van. This had all the ingredients for an incredible matchup. Pantoja, the rugged, battle-tested champion, Van, who only started training a few years ago and has rocketed into a title shot. On paper, this was one of the matchups I was most interested to dissect technically. Instead, it ended in 26 seconds. They engage, Pantoja goes down awkwardly, posts on the arm, and his elbow just gives out. You can see immediately he's done. He waves the referee off, Van gets a TKO by injury, and just like that, there's a new flyweight champion without us really learning anything about how these two match up skill for skill. The stats are almost comical. Pantoja lands 6 significant strikes out of 11, Van lands 2 of 4, and the fight's over. There's just nothing there to analyze in terms of process or style matchups. It's pure injury variance. Looking forward, I'd expect the matchmakers to circle back to this one, or at least give Pantoja a fast track back to a title shot once he's healthy. For Van, the belt is real, but the questions are too. He'll need a strong, convincing defense against someone like Taira or another ranked grinder before we can say he's truly the best flyweight in the world. Now, to close out the 6 key fights, it's time to talk about Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan 2 for the bantamweight title. Going into this rematch, I liked Yan. The reasoning was pretty straightforward. Elite takedown defense, elite counter-striking, incredible shot selection to the body, and the ability to make reads and get better as the fights go longer. If he could keep this standing enough, I trusted his efficiency and damage to beat Merab's volume and pace over 5 rounds. And the stats back up exactly that story. Merab did what Merab always does, constant pressure and non-stop shots. He attempted a massive 29 takedowns, but only landed 2 of them. Yan, on the other hand, quietly went 5 for 9 on his own takedowns and actually put up nearly 3 minutes of control time himself. On the feet, Merab threw a ton, 383 significant strike attempts, landing 134. Yan was far more efficient. He landed 139 significant strikes on just 230 attempts. So Merab has the volume, but Yan has the edge in landed significance and does it on 150 fewer attempts with the cleaner and more damaging shots, especially with the jab and the bodywork. Over 25 minutes, that adds up. The judges gave Yan a clear, unanimous decision with scores of 49-46, 49-46, and 48-47, and I think it's absolutely justified. For me, this was one of the best versions of Petr Yan we've ever seen. It also validated the core of the read we had going in. If you can't consistently hold Yan down, beating him over 5 rounds is a nightmare task, even if you're as relentless as Merab. Big picture, Yan is back on top of the division with a statement win. Merab loses, but he's still very clearly elite and will continue to be a huge problem for almost everyone at bantamweight. Looking ahead, Yan is right back in that conversation as one of the pound-for-pound best technicians in the sport. Matchups with guys like O'Malley, Sandhagen, and an obvious trilogy with Merab are now on the table. For Merab, this isn't a fall-off-a-cliff loss, it's a data point. Against someone with elite takedown defense and efficient striking, he needs a little more layering to his entries and setups. He's still absolutely a nightmare for everyone else in the top 10. Before we wrap up, a few quick shoutouts from the rest of the card and what they might lead to. Jalen Turner picked up a big first-round finish over Edson Barboza. Anytime you stop a veteran name like that, it puts a serious stamp on your resume. Going forward, Turner should only be in big-name, high-action fights. He's the kind of guy you can plug into slots where you know you're going to get some chaos. Chris Duncan grabbed an anaconda choke over Terrence McKinney in classic McKinney chaos fashion. When you fight McKinney, you better be ready for a storm early. And Duncan showed he can not only weather it, but capitalize. That probably earns him another action fight against someone hovering around that unranked but dangerous tier. Perez Ziem pulled off a last-second TKO at 4:59 of round 2. That's the kind of win that sticks in people's minds, and it'll likely earn him more interesting bookings. I'd expect him to get another step up in competition and maybe a better placement on the card next time out. Macy Barber kept her momentum going with another win at flyweight. Not the loudest performance of the night, but she keeps stacking results, and that matters when you look at the bigger picture of the division. She's inching closer toward genuine contender territory. One more strong win, it's going to be pretty hard to deny her a top-tier matchup. So, to zoom out on UFC 323, we ended the night up around 6 units. On paper, that's a winning card. In reality, it was a weird mix of sharp reads, freak outcomes, judging volatility, and one clear lesson from the Moreno versus Taira fight. Some nights you get clean, orderly confirmations of your reads. This was not one of those nights. This was the kind of card that reminds you of how much chaos is baked into this sport, and why it's important to separate process from results. That's my full UFC 323 recap. Yan's masterclass, Taira's breakout, Pantoja's brutal injuries, Cejudo's farewell, the judging drama, and everything in between, plus a clearer picture of where a lot of these fighters might be going next. Let me know in the comments what surprised you the most on this card and which fighters from UFC 323 you're most interested in backing or fading next time out. Thanks for hanging. I'll see you on the next one.